Welcome back. By this point in season 2, you've likely encountered resistance. Maybe people didn't respond, sales were slower than expected, feedbacks felt confusing or mixed. This is the moment where many founders ask, should I change direction or should I give this more time? Today's episode is about answering that question properly because pivoting too early can be just as dangerous as staying too long. The problem isn't lack of intelligence, the problem is emotion. Early business mixes hope, fear, ego, fatigue because emotions distort judgment. And these emotions, people often do one or two things. They panic and pivot constantly, or they stubbornly refuse to change. Neither approach works. Good decisions comes from patterns, not feelings. So today we are going to get clear on the patterns you should follow. Let's start by defining what a pivot actually is. A pivot is not starting over completely, chasing a new idea impulsively, abandoning learning. A pivot is adjusting one major assumption based on evidence while keeping what works. Pivoting is refinement, not escape. And that's an important distinction. You don't need to start over, you need to adjust what isn't working. Now let's talk about why people pivot too early. People pivot too early because silence feels uncomfortable, rejection hurts confidence, progress feels slow. They mistake normal resistance for failure. Here's the truth: early traction is rarely dynamic, it's usually quiet and uneven. If you pivot every time it feels hard, you never let learning compound. Resistance isn't failure, it's part of the learning process. Let it teach you. So, how do you know when it is time to stay patient? Staying patient makes sense if people understand the problem. Some users engage deeply, feedback is consistent, objections are specific, criticism is good. It means people are paying attention. Confusion can be fixed, indifference is harder. If you are getting constructive feedback, it's a sign that you are on the right track. The next step is to address it. Don't change everything. On the other hand, how do you know when it is time to pivot? Pivoting may be necessary if no one engages meaningfully, the problem doesn't feel urgent, people don't try workarounds, feedback is vague or polite. Silence is a strong signal than rejection. Here is why. Rejection says, I understand, but I'm not interested. Silence says, I don't care. And that's a much more telling response. Silence often means the problem isn't significant enough for people to act on it. When it comes time to pivot, what do you actually pivot? You rarely need to pivot everything. Common pivot points are target customer, pricing model, delivery method, positioning. Rarely you should discard core learning, validated problems, customer insights. Good pivots preserve knowledge. If you have learned something valuable, don't throw it away. Your goal is to adjust, not abandon. Now let's break it down with a simple decision framework. Ask yourself, what assumption failed? What evidence supports that? What can I adjust without starting over? If you can't answer those questions clearly, it's probably time to wait. Patience is often the smarter move. And remember, just because it feels hard doesn't mean it's time to pivot. Alright, let's wrap this up. In the next episode, we'll move into structure from one customer to a repeatable process because one success is luck. Repeatability is business. Season 2 is about moving from insight to stability. Thank you for listening. See you in the next one.